Easter, we were talking about arithmetic sequences, right? Okay. In Junior Cert, we would call them linear sequences. Okay. So, basically, you add or subtract the same number each time. So, an example of an arithmetic sequence would be 2, 5, 8, 11, 14, etc. Right? Okay. Dot, dot, dot. Yeah. So you're adding 3 each time. And remember, we call the first term A. So A, you needn't write this down because this is all in your notes already. I'm just reminding you what happened. D is the common difference, 3, right? And if you want to get the general term, right, there's a formula and it's in the log table. It's A plus N minus 1 times D. Is that okay? And you fill in for A and D and you multiply out and you'll get the sequence is 3n minus 1 or whatever it is. Okay, is that right? Are we good with that? You remember that? Okay, right, that's basically all we did before Easter, or this chapter. So today I'm going to talk about an arithmetic series. Okay, so an arithmetic series, girls, is you add all the terms. Right, okay, so same as before, right, we still have term 1, term 2, term 3, term 4, and we're adding on a constant every time, except this time instead of having a comma between them, we have a plus, right, and we don't call them terms anymore, we call them S. So S stands for sum. So we say S1 would be term 1, S2 would be term number 1 and term number 2 added together, S3 would be the first 3 terms added together. S4 would be the first 4 terms added together. S20 would be the first 20 terms added together. So basically we're just going to add all the terms, right, up as far as that point. Okay? And we can get a general form for the sum. So T, we had Tn before. Tn is term, right? T stands for term. S stands for sum. Okay, so basically the sum of the first n terms. So the sum of the first n terms is n over 2 times 2a. A is still the first term, right? And d is still the common difference. So a and d are the exact same thing, right? So a and d are the exact same thing, right? Okay, the formula is different now because we're doing the sum of the terms. So instead of just naming the terms, we're actually adding them. Okay? So, example 1, I'll give you a minute to catch up. Are we okay? Can't read it. What's it say? What are you stuck on?
No, it says, is it find 5n and...
Find Sn and S20. So that's Sn and S20, right? And S stands for sum. So Sn is like a general term to add the first n terms, and S20 is add the first 20 terms in this sequence, right? And when you're adding the terms, it's not called a sequence anymore, it's called a series. And we don't call it term anymore, we call it sum. Right, you ready for me? So here's a sequence, right? Oh, here's a series, right? 1 plus 5 plus 9 plus 13, right? So term number 1 is 1, then you add on 4 to get the 5, add on 4, and you're adding on 4 each time. So that means A is the first term, which is 1, and D is the common difference, which is 4. Okay? Off you go to your log tables then, and you get the formula for Sn. Sorry, you can't see. So you get the formula for Sn. So Sn is n over 2 times
Do you have any graph paper?
a graph paper. I don't think.
Okay, that's right. Thank you.
No. N over 2 times 2a plus n minus 1 times d. Sorry, can I move it up like this? Is that okay? So A I said was 1 and D was 4. So I'm just filling in for A and D. So it's n over 2 times 2 times A is 1 plus n minus 1 times D is 4. Okay, so that's n over 2 into 2, multiply into that bracket, 4 by n is 4n minus 4, and that would be n over 2 into 4n plus 2, sorry, it's actually minus 2, isn't it? Okay, and you can multiply in if you want, you get full marks for that, okay? But if you want to multiply in, that would be 4n squared over 2 minus 2n over 2, and then 4 divided by 2 is 2n squared, and 2 divided by 2 is 1, or just n on its own, so minus n. Is that alright? Okay, so the multiplying in there by the n over 2 is optional. Tidying it up inside is probably a good idea. Chances are you're going to use it for something anyway, so it's probably just as well to tidy it up. Is that alright? Okay, and the second part of that question was they asked me for S20, the sum of the first 20 terms. What do I do? Everywhere I see an n, put in a 20, so that would be 2 times 20 to be squared minus 20, so that would be 780. Is that okay? Happy with that? Right, example 2. Is that down? Right, example 2. I'll leave you write it and then we'll do it. So it's a series. How do you know it's a series? Because there's pluses between the numbers and not a comma, right? Find the sum of, so sum of, that means I'm looking for eighth, right? Okay, but I know it ends at 50, but I don't know how many terms to add, I don't, right? Okay, and I'm not going to write them out, right? So the first thing I need to know is what term number is that, so I know how many terms to add. Does that make sense to you? Like this is term 1, term 2, term 3, term 4. This is term, I don't know, is it term 10? Do I add the first 10 terms, or do I add the first 12 terms, or do I add 20 terms, or what do I add? I don't know. So I have to find out what term number that is to start. So before I do the SN, because how do you know to do the SN? Because it's sum right? So before I do the SN, I need to find out what term number that is, so I know how many terms to add. Are you with me? Okay, so that means I have to say, well, Tn, what number term is 50? What number term is 50? So Tn is what number term is 50? So A plus, the formula for Tn is A plus n minus 1 times D, and I want that to be equal to 50. Okay, so I know A is the first term, which is 6. I don't know what n is, because that's what I'm looking for, the number of the term. Times D is what I'm adding on each time, so I look above and I'm adding on a 4 each time. And I know it works out to be 50. Okay, so that's multiplying in, that's 6 plus 4n minus 4 equals 50. So that's 4n is equal to 50 minus 6 plus 4. So that means 4n is equal to 48. That means n is equal to 12. So that's the 12th term. So I want to add up the first 12 terms. So I'm looking for S12, right? Is that okay? So I had to figure out how many terms to add to start with. Okay, so that's why I had to figure out what term number 50 was. Because now I know I have to add the first 12 terms, right? So I'm looking for S12. Okay, so that's what I'm looking for, is S12. So Sn is equal to n over 2 times 2a plus n minus 1 times, can I move it up? Have I cut anyone off? N minus 1 times d. So I'm looking for term number 12. So I have to add the first 12 terms. So everywhere I see an n, put in a 12. A I had a minute ago. A is 6. So it's 2 times 6 plus n is 12. 12 minus 1 times d is 4. Okay, into the calculator that's 12 plus 44 is 56. 56 multiplied by 6 is 336. Now, I could be wrong, okay, with the calculation, because I just back from my holidays, so yeah. Right, okay, is that right? Are you all with me? So we had to use T to find out what number term it was first, and then we had to use S. So if the question says find the sum of, that means you're using the SN formula. Okay, is that right? Are we good with that? Right, example 3. Ready? Example 3, I'll leave you write it down. How many terms of the series 5 plus 8 plus 11 plus 14 plus ... must be added to make a total of 98? Yes.
Is S12, so is 336 just the first 12 terms?
Yeah, the first 12 terms added together, exactly. And here I've done the opposite. I've added the terms and told you the answer, right? So in this example, it's like I added a certain number of terms and you have to find out how many terms do I add, right? Whereas a minute ago I said add 12 terms and give me the answer. Are you ready? So this time they're saying Sn, the answer is, so you added a certain number of terms and you got 98. You don't know how many terms you added, that's the question. How many terms did you add? So the formula is n over 2 times 2a plus n minus 1 times d. But you know, when you work all that out, you got 98. So you're looking for n, because you want to know how many terms did I add. So you fill in for a and d, so that's n over 2 times 2 times a is the first term, so it's 2 times 5, plus n minus 1 times d is the common difference, what you're adding on each time, which is a 3, right? And you know the answer is going to be 98. Is that okay? So that's, get a new board. That's n over 2. I might take a shortcut inside, and that would be 3n minus 3. 10 plus 3n minus 3, which would be 3n plus 7 inside, yeah? Would you agree? Equals 98. The answer is going to be 98. Okay? So multiply in. That's 3n squared over 2 plus 7n over 2 equals 98. Okay, I'm going to get a common denominator, right, or I'm just going to multiply across by 2, right? So when I do that, I'll get 3n squared plus 7n equals 2 times 98, so 180, 196. Is that okay? So everyone see, I just multiplied everything by 2. Or if you like, get a common denominator and drop it. Okay? Right, so then that's 3n squared plus 7n minus 196 equals 0. Right, 2 sets of brackets, factorize 3n and n. What are the factors of 196? If anyone wants to help me, feel free. Divided by. You can help me. I'm open to help. Fourteens. No, that's not going to work out. 196 divided by. Probably faster doing the minus b formula. Does anyone have any suggestions for the factors there? You could be typing away there in your calculator as easy as me.
There's 49 and 4, but I don't think that gives.
Sorry?
There's 49 and 4, but that doesn't give you 7.
49 and 4. No. 14 is probably 21. 1, 2, 6 divided by 21 equals 7. No, doesn't go in. Seven 28. Yeah, that'll work. So 7 28. That would be plus 28 minus 21. Yeah. Okay. Then you let each bracket equal 0, so you get 3n equals minus 28. So n equals minus 28 over 3. Or you get n equals 7. What's the story with n is the number of the term? So this means you add minus 28 over 3 terms. Can you do that? No. That wouldn't exist, sure wouldn't. You can't have a negative number of terms and you can't have a fraction number of terms. So this is not an answer. So your answer is n is 7. So basically if you add the first 7 terms in this sequence, you will get 98. Is that okay? Okay. How am I going? Yeah, I'll keep going. Right. You ready? Right, okay. So if you have the sum of any number of terms and you take away the sum of the previous number of terms, you get Tn. What the hell does that mean? So imagine I had S10. If I had the sum of the first 10 terms, and if I had S9, I had the sum of the first 9 terms. If I take away the sum of the first 10 terms, take away the sum of the first 9 terms, I'll get term number 10, right? Okay, so I'll get the actual term, okay? So if you know what the first 10 add up to, and you know what the first 9 add up to, if you subtract them, you'll get what term number 10 is, right? So that's what this means over here. So if you've the sum of a certain number of terms, and then you've the sum of the number of terms that's one less, that'll give you term number whatever. So if you'd sum of S20, take away S19, so the sum of the first 20 terms, take away the sum of the first 19 terms, will give you term number 20. Okay, is that alright? Okay, and we'll have a look at an example that uses that. Okay, so here's an example. Sorry. You ready for me? Right, so basically I'm just going to use the fact that I had there a minute ago. So if you have the sum of the first 10 terms and you take away the sum of the one less than that, right, it'll give you term number, what term n is. Okay, so basically I have Sn, don't I? They told it to me in the question. How do I get S of n minus 1? S of n minus 1. Everywhere I see an n, put in a n minus 1, right? Okay, as in, you know, if I asked you to get S5, you'd put in a 5 for n, wouldn't you? If I asked you to get S7, you'd put in a 7 for n. So if I asked you to get S of n minus 1, you put in an n minus 1 for n. Is that right? Okay, so I have an expression for Sn. It's n squared minus 4n. Agreed? Now I want to take away S of n minus 1. So that means everywhere I see an n, I'm going to put in a minus 1. So it was n squared, so it's now n minus 1 squared minus 4 times n minus 1. Okay, and that will tell me what Tn is, which is what I'm looking for. Okay, so I have to sort this out. So I get n squared minus 4n minus, I'm going to keep this bracket here. Right, I need to square out this bracket, square the first, twice the first by the second, square the last. I need to multiply in here by minus 4n, so minus 4n plus 4, that's that sorted, and that's going to give me Tn, which is what the question is asking me to get. Right, so n squared minus 4n minus n squared, just multiplying by a minus here, plus 2n minus 1 plus 4n minus 4, and that will give me an expression for Tn. So tidying it up, n squared minus n squared gone, minus 4n plus 4n gone. So I'm left with 2n minus 5, isn't that right? So that's the expression for Tn. That was the first part of the question. So the next thing is the sequence arithmetic? Are you adding or subtracting the same number each time? How will I prove that sequence is arithmetic? What I do? Just write out a few terms, yeah? Will I write out term number 1? So term number 1 is 2 times 1 minus 5, which would be minus 3. Agreed? Term number 2 would be 2 times 2 minus 5, which is minus 1. Term number 3 would be 2 times 3 minus 5, which will give me 1. And I'll just do term number 4. I'll just do one more. Term number 4, can I move that up? Are we okay? Is 2 times 4 minus 5, which would be 3. So check it out. I'm adding 2, adding 2, adding 2. So you're adding a constant each time, so it's arithmetic, yes. The question was, is it arithmetic? And the answer is yes. Is that all right? Right. Sprinkled all over myself, lovely. Yeah, one more thing today, right, okay, is this sigma notation, right? We saw this in algebra already, we didn't really take much notice of it, okay? So just to explain what it means, it's just a short way of writing, an arithmetic series, right? So sigma notation, sigma, girls, is just a Greek letter, okay, and it looks like that. See that? Like a funny looking E, right? Okay, so that's sigma, it's just a Greek letter, right? You'll come across it, right? Okay, so instead of writing out, right, Sn equals term number 1, add term 2, add term 3, add term 4, right? What they do is they use this sigma notation. And sigma notation means the sum of, right, TR, and it says start with R equals 1 and finish with R equals, or sorry, they don't say R equals N up there, they'll just say N. So it basically means start with R equals 1, term number 1, then put in 2 for R, 2, then put in 3 for R, then put in 4 for R, right, and then finally put in N for R, right? For example, right, if I had the sum of, that's supposed to be a sigma, R equals 1 to R equals 4 of TR, that would mean put in a 1 for R. Sorry, they don't say R equals 4 on top. That's the second time I got that wrong. They'll just say 4. So what it means is put in a 1 for R, right? Okay, sorry if they just said R. So it means put in a 1 for R, then put in a 2 for R, then put in a 3 for R, and then put in a 4 for R, and sigma means the sum of, so you just add all your answers. So that would be 10. So it's replace R with 1 all the way up to R equals 4, and then add your answers, because that sigma means the sum of. So instead of saying Sn equals all the terms added up, they sometimes write it like this. Don't get too hung up on it. It's straightforward enough when you see it. Okay, how will you see it? Right, you'll just see it as in an example like this. Right, okay, so example, evaluate R equals 1 up to 6, right, of 3R plus 1. So that means put in a 1 for R, then put in a 2 for R, then put in a 3 for R, then put in a 4 for R, then put in a 5 for R, and then put in a 6 for R, and the sum of means you add all your answers. That's the same as finding S6, girls, the sum of the first 6 terms, which is the same as S6, okay? Right, so you can do it out the long way, right, or well, it depends on, sometimes it's shorter to do it out that way, or you could just get S6, so remember, probably have to write out a few terms to get the A and the D, so listen, I'll just work it out this way. That's 4, that would be 4 plus 7, this would be 10, this would be 13, this would be 16, and this would be 19, add them up, 21, 34, 50, 69, I think. Yeah. Is that alright? Okay, so it's just a short way, a different way of writing SN, right? Okay, it's the sum of all the terms, right? Okay, and this one is the sum of the first 6 terms, right? If that was 8, it'd be the sum of the first 8 terms, etc. So instead of saying SN, or they'll just say this, okay? Right, I'll give you a few questions based on these tonight, okay? So on this page, it's page 339. Of course I shut it. So page 339. Right. Let's do 1 to 8. Now I've done some of these as my examples. So except 1 part 1, 2 part 1, and number 3. So 1 to 8, except 1 part 1, 2 part 1, and number 3. Is that okay?